Pre-Algebra students. Mr. Lawrence here with your first flipped lesson of the new year. And today we are going to be starting a geometry unit, which you already know. You took a pre-test in class, but your first lesson is going to be on polygons. And first we need to define a polygon. A polygon has three characteristics, and this should be review. Number one, it must be a closed figure. Must be closed. Okay? Two, it must be two-dimensional. In other words, it must be flat. Sorry about that. Sometimes kids get intimidated by the word dimensional. All the dimensions are length, width, and height. But a polygon only has two dimensions, length and width, or width and height, or something like that. So a square is a type of polygon. But a cube, which is like a three-dimensional square, is not a polygon. All right, it's something called a polyhedra, but we're not going to really learn about those in this class. Okay, so this is a polygon. This one is not a polygon. All right, third characteristic, closed figure, two-dimensional, and I can't remember, I'm having a mental blank. It must have three or more sides. Okay, so you got to have three or more sides to be a polygon. Closed figure, closed two-dimensional figure having three or more sides, it is guaranteed to be a polygon. Okay? Now, a side is not a curve. For example, that is not a polygon. That does not count as a side. This is on one side, but that is not. So it can't have a curve. All right, now we classify them by the number of sides. When we have three sides, of course, it's called a triangle. And you're going to want to make sure you take notes on this because some of these you're not going to know. All right, four, it is not called a square, it is called a quadrilateral. There are many different types of quadrilaterals, one of which is a square, but not all four-sided polygons are squares. If I asked you the name of a four-sided polygon, you would say quadrilateral, not square. All right, five sides. That's like the building we're going to see in Washington, D.C., the Pentagon. Okay. Six is a hexagon. Seven, a lot of kids get mixed up. It's a heptagon. Eight's an easy one. Just think of an octopus having 8 arms. Eight's an octagon. And 9 is a nonagon. 10 is a decagon. Now, over 10, most of them don't have names. Like 12 has a special name, a dodecagon. But what's considered acceptable after 10, you're allowed to call it an 11gon. And 12 can be called a 12gon. I know the name dodecagon. Do is 2 and deca is 10. All right. But 12gon is totally acceptable. Okay, now, those are all regular polygons there on the left-hand side. They don't have to be regular. For example, let me draw it like this. This triangle here is still a polygon, but that's certainly not regular. What does regular mean? Well, let's define it here for you. Regular means that all sides are congruent, all angles are congruent. Okay, you must have both to be regular. For example, I can draw a quadrilateral with 4 sides congruent. That is not regular. Okay, namely a rhombus. Or I could draw a quadrilateral with 4 congruent angles, namely a rectangle, but it's not regular. To be regular, you have to have all sides congruent and all angles congruent. So, this is a pentagon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Doesn't look like what you think of as a pentagon because you're used to seeing a regular pentagon, but this is also a pentagon. So you just count the number of sides. I think the best example of a decagon is one you've seen a lot. Let me see if I can find one. I believe this is a decagon right here. Yeah, we're going to say it's a star. Well, of course it's a star, but it's also a decagon. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 sides. It's a decagon. Okay? Now, the last thing we need to go over here is the terms convex and concave. And I'm not going to define them for you. I just placed some shapes here, and some of these are convex and some of them are concave. See if you can place them where you think they should go before I do. Go ahead and pause the video for a minute. If you're watching with somebody else, talk about it with that person. Think, does the star, does it go the convex side or the concave side? I know you don't know what they mean, but see what you can do. Test yourself. Okay, here come the answers. The star is concave. This quadrilateral is concave, and the arrow is concave. All right. These are convex. Now looking at the examples, hopefully you start to see a concave polygon caves in on itself. See how they're kind of going inside on themselves? Right? Even the arrow there kind of pushing in. Maybe a better arrow would look like this one, where you can see it more. It's going in on itself. If it's going in on itself, it's concave. If it's not going in on itself, we say it's convex. Sometimes they have sort of a circular look to them, but not necessarily. Like this certainly doesn't look like a circle, but the things aren't going in on itself. So concave is when it caves in on itself. Convex is when it doesn't. So let me ask you this. How about if I draw this pentagon here? I'm going to draw three types of pentagons. We're going to make what I call a house pentagon. Because like when you're a little kid, that's how you draw a house. You don't know it, but you are drawing a pentagon. Kind of looks like home base. Okay. I'm going to draw that one. And then I'm going to draw this pentagon. Kind of like the house broke in on itself. And finally, we'll do the regular pentagon, which I believe is right here. Okay, see if you can decide which side they go to. Okay, if you're watching for a solution, there's one's concave, that one's definitely convex. What about this one? Well, is it going in on itself? No, it's not. It's actually a convex shape. Okay, all right, so let's see, what did we go over today? We learned the definition of a polygon, a closed two-dimensional figure having 3 or more sides, right? We learned the names: triangle, quadrilateral, pentagon, hexagon, heptagon, octagon, nonagon, decagon, and then after that we use the numbers -gon. We learned that polygons don't have to be regular. We just count the number of sides, and that tells us how to name it. And then finally, we learned about convex and concave. All right, that's it for today's lesson. Mr. Lawrence signing off. Good night, everybody.